Hi everyone, welcome to an exciting part two of a conversation with comics creator Jim Fern. Jim, I believe the boxes have grown.
Say that again?
I believe the boxes have grown behind you. I believe they've expanded.
No, it's the same. I haven't touched them since.
Oh, okay, okay.
I
Maybe
haven't
it's
touched
just
them.
me.
I'm waiting for them to decline without me doing anything. And I hope this is exciting. I haven't watched myself on the first one. I can't stand looking at myself. I don't even look in the mirror. When I brush my teeth, I cover my eyes and brush my teeth. So I
That's
had
humility. That is humility right there.
I had my I call it what you will, but it works sometimes. I had my friend Ann Sabo look at the video and she said I did great, so I trust her word on it.
You truly did. You truly did. Next to me, anybody looks great. So
Yeah.
that's absolutely wonderful. No, the last time we were talking, you were talking about some people that were supporters in your creative journey, and you mentioned Don Heck, and I believe you were also talking about someone by the name of John Buscema as well.
Well, if you know at least 1980s history of comic books, you'd know John Buscema was a groundbreaker. He was with
Hmm.
Timely Comics before it became Marvel Comics, and then he came back with Marvel Comics. And there are a few people who were the pioneers of what comics are today. In the old days, they were very stale and stiff. There was a conventional method, right, of telling a story, and Marvel Comics broke away from the DC method, which was very conventional.
Hmm.
And their best non-conventional artist and creator was Jack Kirby, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, Jack Kirby was a little conventional back in the 40s when he first started out, and then over his years at Marvel, he just unleashed his own, uh, potential, unfringed, and he did his own thing, and he laid the groundwork for just explosive, style, explosive visual content with action and breaking the panels and everything. And
Hmm.
along that line, a huge fan of his was John Buscema. And John Buscema, I got to know him from, I love the old black and white books when I was a young teenager. Conan the Barbarian,
Hmm.
Savage Sword of Conan. And they were the Warren books that were not Marvel. I loved the black and white. But he did Savage Sword of Conan. And I used to, when I was starting out, before I even thought of being in the business, I would draw from John Romita Sr.'s work and Savage Sword of Conan work because you could feel the weight of the character Conan, the intensity, which not many other people did. Not even Kirby did intensity, the intense look. The chin tucked into the chest and the I'm coming at you type of look, which is
Hmm.
what John Buscema started. Little did I know he lived near me. So when I wound up becoming friends with Don Heck, we would go to the local convention in Stony Brook, Long Island. It was Stony Brook. It was called the Icon Convention,
Nice,
and
nice.
yeah, it was on the North Shore. If you swam across the North Shore, you'd hit Connecticut. So the North Shore of Long Island is over the water is Connecticut, and it's like Long Island was where everybody was, because it was near the city where all the comics were. DC and Marvel Comics were New York City, so a lot of the guys lived there, and one day I'm with Don at the Icon Convention, and there's John Buscema.
Hmm.
But meanwhile, in a parallel universe, his brother got me my foot in the door over at Marvel.
Uh,
So his brother was in Springfield, Virginia, and I had no idea John was right next to me. So and it was like ideal. It was like a kid, whose dreams that never I never even thought of it, and here they were. So it was my dream that I didn't know I had actually coming to life. It was stupendous. He
Love
was a
it.
tough guy.
Love it.
John Buscema was a tough guy. He was, and his Conan the Barbarian was probably his inner self. He used to deadlift 500 pounds a day
Oh,
in
wow.
the morning. Yeah, and he was never sure of me. He used to shake my hand and go, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." I used to say, "Hey, I know your brother." I thought I would ingratiate him by saying myself to him by saying, "Your brother got my foot in the door." But he never. That didn't. He didn't even flinch. It was like, oh. because he didn't know what my work was like.
Yeah.
So he had no respect for anybody else except for, Jack Kirby. Jack Kirby was his template of how to be a comic book artist. All these guys wanted to be illustrators. They didn't want to draw comic books, but
Hmm.
comic books was steady money. They all wanted to be like J.C. Leyendecker or Montgomery Flagg. They wanted to be great illustrators, Saturday Evening Post and beyond. So there were a lot of. I think John Buscema was a little bit, you know, he was a little bit. He didn't want to be a comic book only artist. So I think there was a little resentment there or bitterness that that's what he became.
Uh,
So he was always kind of gruff with me. So then one day he's doing a book signing, and I decided, well, heck, I'll go down, I'll say hi, but I'll bring. I'm getting the idea, he didn't know what my art looked like. That's why he was giving me the cold shoulder. He was always
mhm.
nice but cold, right? But the three of us would hang out at the convention. It was weird. So I said, let me go down and I'll bring some of my real life drawings, because I started out doing portraits and all that.
Mhm, mhm.
And he's at this little shop down in Sayville, Long Island called Amazing, which isn't around anymore. Amazing Comics. And it's a little bitty shop and he's signing the books and he's talking down about superhero comics, they're just people in underwear, that type of thing, right?
Right, right.
So at a little break, I said, "Hey," he goes, "Hey, hey, hey," and I said, "I wanted to show you some of the work I." So he looked at my real life drawings, and there the wall collapsed. That big, gruff, cold as ice wall collapsed, and he was such a sweetheart with me after that. And so I helped him. He brought a huge box of comics to give away, and he couldn't even give it all away. So at the end, we were walking to his car, and I said, "Hey, let me get that box for you." He goes, "No, no." He picks it up, this big box because he was powerful, and he threw it in his trunk. And we were chit chatting, and in it, the trunk of his this old Cadillac. I don't know, like a early 1980s Cadillac, red leather, black. This long boat. He had some of his. When you do layouts on paper, uh, well, when you draw on paper, a lot of the technique with the older guys like Don Heck and John Buscema. I think Don Heck copied John Buscema's way of doing things. So John Buscema would, like on newsprint paper, you get the pads in a store. He
Mhm.
would do his layouts, and his layouts, the pencil was so hard, like you could feel it on the other side. You could feel the imagery because the pencil would dig through. He was that powerful,
Mhm.
and he knew what he wanted to do, so it was spot on almost all the time. So he had a thick pile of those, and he said, "Here, you want these?" And I go, Heck yeah, I'll take those." So I've got them somewhere in my garage. The best way to learn how to draw this stuff is to see what the masters did and to
Mhm.
actually feel it. So I have them somewhere. A pile of John Buscema. For anybody who's a comic book aficionado, that's like comic book art gold. That I have somewhere in my garage. I have some of Don Hicks too, and I learned off of that. So these guys weren't my mentors, but I picked up what they were doing just by osmosis. So
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. I'm curious about what has your creative attention at the moment, how you're continuing to create.
I don't consider myself a creator. I consider myself an imitator of things I see.
Mm, mhm,
And then I can manipulate it. Right? Creation's very limited for me. So I'm trying to finish a graphic novel for Oliver Stone, the movie director.
mhm,
And I say that because it's on Amazon. There are pre-orders for it. And just Monday, I get the word, where you at on the book? So I only deal with Oliver Stone's one guy, his historian, good friend. I call him his right hand man. His name is Peter Kuznick. And I said, well, I'm on the last chapter, the first 10 pages. It's a 28-page chapter, and then there's a 10-page epilogue. He said, okay. He says, Oliver wants to rework the last part of it to fit. It's about history,
mhm,
untold history of the United States, and he wants it to fit current events. And I am worried about getting it done. And in hindsight of Monday's back and forth emails, I'm kind of glad I didn't get it done because now he has the opportunity to. to update it to today's current events before it hits. Simon& Schuster's a publisher, so I'm
Mhm.
doing that, and then whatever else to supplement my income. The thing I take pride in the most is I'm Catholic, and there's a Catholic group of comic book guys called Voyage, started by one fellow by the name of Philip Kozlowski. He's a well-known Catholic writer, and I'm their creative consultant. So I
Mhm.
have a lot more creative input that way. Like it's like drawing to me is not creative. It's like it can be, but it's limited, right? So
Mhm.
I'm better with coming up with ideas and taking a look at what other people are doing and saying maybe it could be an art director kind of thing, and helped a little bit with creative writing. So that's what I deal with when I'm not doing superhero books.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there a sort of a crown jewel of your experiences that stands out?
You know, as far as the work goes, no, when I was on Spider-Man, they had what they called inventory stories.
Hmm.
So I was always like the inventory story artist. When a regular artist would be sick and couldn't finish his deadline, they'd get a fill-in story that was previously done by somebody, and I'd be one of those guys. Or they would pull out an inventory pencil story and say, "Hey Jim, could you ink this?" I go, "Yeah." So I did various jobs on the Spider-Man titles. I did the Hobgoblin reveal, and I did the honeymoon issue.
Hmm.
That to
Hmm.
me was like that to me. I got in when I got in this. I wanted to draw Spider-Man, Superman, Batman, and then I helped design one of the X-Men Jubilee.
Hmm.
Very like I did her first ever story, her only story. So I'm
Very cool.
credited as yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm credited as co-designer, even though I think Mark Silvestri drew her face first. But if his what he drew fit in line with what Chris Claremont was asking in the script.
Hmm.
So Chris Claremont gave a brief idea of what he wanted her to look like, and in my head, I was thinking, well, this is like Tinkerbell. So I made her like Tinkerbell, I tried to make her with physical attitude and that type of thing.
Hmm.
And he described her lair as the Lost Boys lair, which is the Lost Boys in Peter Pan. I don't know.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's right.
Yeah, yeah. So I had Peter Pan, Tinkerbell in my head when I drew that one story. I did lousy with the costume because he described the costume in his script, and I went with what I thought he was describing. It was just so flat. Then later on, they developed what it is now. It's sort of like, yeah, I never thought in bulky terms, like bulky armory, bulky jackets. I'm from the days of George Reeves tights on TV, right? So everything I drew was
Hmm.
socks instead of boots. I drew socks. It was like so my creative prowess is only there as much as input I put in my head. I have to look at a lot in order to come up with ideas. So it's
Yeah.
all a catalog of what you have in your mind. Creativity comes from that.
Hmm.
And what I have in my mind is limited. It's so
Are there particular things that you do to sort of restock the creative well?
yeah, all the time, every day. Every day I scour the internet. I look at other artists. Like I love Dan Mora. Uh, if you read the books today, Clay Mann he's fairly local. He's almost 2 hours north of me in Daytona,
Hmm.
and I met him once. He's a quiet guy. You can't get one word out of him. He's just quiet, but his art is phenomenal. We did free comic book day at a local shop, and I'm doing things in pencil, and he's whipping out a Catwoman in color, and it's like this is too good to be doing on free comic book day. It's great stuff. So I look at his work. Friends of mine are Jimmy Palmiotti and Amanda Connor. If you know who they are.
Hmm. Oh yeah.
So yeah, so I always go. I always like to look and see what the women are doing, what ladies are doing. I always
Yeah.
think there's an untapped market out there for women. That's why they all. I think that's why they all go from manga. You know,
Hmm.
it's,
Hmm.
it's different. The superhero comic books are mainly for guys. But
Yeah.
there's. So I always like to see what the women are doing. You know. like uh, you know, I can't remember her name, but Jan, whatever, because she took over doing a lot of great work with Jubilee on covers and stuff. I can't think of her name. God Almighty, I hate that. But I always look to see, the new talent, fresh talent, and then I look at it and go, I can't do that. That's not what I do. But it's great to see what they're doing. So then I go back to the older guys. And I go, well, I'll just stick with what I know, and hopefully somebody will like it. But
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
I'm always looking. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, any particular spaces where you like to connect with readers?
Well, I'm an eye person. I like eyes.
Hmm.
So if I'm doing a scene where the character's looking at somebody, I'm not going to do it, a simple, slash and a dot. I want to do an eye, like I did. I did the new Badger with Mike Barron. It was Enter the Badger. It was about 10 years ago,
Hmm. Hmm.
and there was a scene there where he's looking at a guy in the draft, whatever, where you go sign up to enlist. And I wanted his eye to connect with the guy he's looking at. I want the reader to connect with the eye. That's the
Hmm.
way I am. It's like movies or whatever you want. It's like I love Humphrey Bogart, another old, but he said acting comes from 6 feet behind the eyes.
Hmm.
And when
Hmm.
you're drawing these books, I don't get a whole lot of action in a lot of the stories I do. So the thing that keeps my interest is trying to make the character act behind the eyes. When I draw it. Even if I only get to do it in one panel. I did well, like I did Legion 90. I filled in for what the heck is his name? Son of a gun. I can't even remember his name. The British artist. And I hope they don't see any of this. But I did all these huge eyes, and I was doing manga style type eyes, and I didn't even manga wasn't a thing back then. So I'm always into the eyes. The eyes are the window to the soul.
Hmm. Hmm.
Or if there's a real action scene, I like to make the characters have gravity, movement. There needs to be movement, which is what a guy like John Buscema used to do.
Hmm.
Other than that, if it's talking heads, whew, boy, I can get bored really quick with the story. So I have to. So that's why I go for the things I like the eyes or whatever. So
Yeah, yeah. Keeping the
yeah,
reader in mind.
yeah, yeah. I had one young man say to me once many years ago at a convention. He says, "You brought me into the story with the way you did." I said, "Oh," I said, "Well, great, thanks. That's what I'm trying to do.
Hmm.
If I have time to do it. So a lot of times you don't have time to do it. It was always it was very deadline oriented the business. So, but yeah, I need to bring myself into the story. So I'm a reader, right? So I want to do what I like about what I see when I read something.
Hmm. Are there go-to convention spaces for you?
No, I mean, I had been asked at some point, all expenses paid, but I'll always wind up with a project that I got to sit and do. So or I just would rather stay home. It's too much traveling. The traveling and moving your things around and that's
Yeah.
I'll do it once in a while locally because I enjoy meeting other people, but because I'm in my solitude all the time, sometimes it's nice to go out and meet the fans or whatever.
Hmm.
The 5 fans I have. I have a few that follow me when they know I'm going out there, which is nice. That makes it worth it to me, right? So when you have a few loyal followers, it it, it makes it nice to do in these in-person appearances.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you can count me among your fans.
Ah,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I appreciate that. Maybe one day we'll meet in person.
Yes, yeah, that would
Yeah.
be great. Anything that we've missed in the talk through that you want to make sure to share about comics, about the industry, about your process or anything like that before we close?
How much time do we have left? Put a timer on it. How much time?
Whatever you like, whatever's
Well,
comfortable.
no. Well, when I started, the industry was different, right? But now everybody has the platform of social media, which I didn't have. So starting now is different than when I started. But it takes commitment. It takes commitment. The type of commitment that isn't conducive to living life, right? You just
Hmm.
have to want to sit here and do this, you know. So I'm at the point now where I can't wait to retire so I can live a little bit before it's too late. But like Don Heck, who was my friend, I'll just use his as an example. Married and divorced twice.
Hmm.
He said because my wives got tired of looking at the back of my head, you
Hmm.
know.
Hmm. Hmm.
So if this is if this makes you happy above all, I know guys who just this makes them happy above all, and they'll just sit hours on end. I have friends I'll go out with, and they'll draw on napkins, and I'm thinking, put the napkin away. So this is a vocation. It's really art is a vocation.
Yeah.
It's not just something you do. It's your soul, right?
Hmm.
So if it makes your soul happy to do this, then do it. But if it's difficult, now you can do it your own way online. So my experiences, are a little bit different than what they would be for today. So, if you love to do it and you want to do it, you want to self-publish or you want to show on a social media platform, that's the way it is today. I used to tell people earlier in the older days, just you have to get ready for rejection. You cannot allow rejection to beat you down. Because I'm always rejected. I got taken off of projects. I got fired from CrossGen Comics. I'm continually being rejected, and you can't because everybody has a subjective look, a subjective style that they like, right?
Hmm.
So one editor might love your work, and another editor just thinks you're terrible. So you have to let rejection roll off your back, and just keep going.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
The journey of persistence.
Right, but you have to make sure you have to have an honest self-evaluation too. You have
Hmm.
to make sure you have something to offer, not just you love to do and you want people to accept you.
Hmm.
You have
Hmm.
to have something to give that people will like, So, and you have to be sure that you can contribute that way. I know a lot of people that just like, oh, hey, I love to draw, love me for this. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So it's a strange mind game too. It's a strange psychology game. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Jim, I appreciate your time. I appreciate your work. And I am wishing you well in the work as well as some nice wellness in, you said retirement. So I hope not completely retired, but wishing you lots of good moments.
I appreciate that. Wish me that I can retire. Give
There
me
we
that
go.
wish. Okay,
There we go.
let's rub something on that.
That's right. That's
Jason,
right.
thanks for asking me. I appreciate. I never know who pays attention to what I do, so I appreciate that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've been paying attention for some time, and thank you for saying yes, and thank you for a wonderful part one and part two.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yep. Yep.
Until next year for part 3 and 4.
That's right. That's right. We'll
Okay.
we'll make it happen. Thanks so much.
When the Oliver Stone books come out, right? So,
Perfect. Love
all
it.
right,
Bring
super.
Oliver with you. There you
Oh, yeah, that would be
go.
nice. That would be.
Yeah.
I'll tell him that. I'll
Yes.
tell
Yeah.
him Jason wants you to come with me. Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
All right. Very good, Jason.
All right. Thanks so much.
All right. Bye bye.